What is up, you beautiful, beautiful people? It is Wayne here. We are a few days away from the end of 2022. Where has the time gone? But yeah, it's the end of the year, so I want to talk about my favorite albums of the year because this is always something I like to do at the end of the year. And if you saw my Spotify Wrapped video, you probably have an idea of like some of the albums that are on there, but not every, album that I loved this year made my year-end Spotify list. So yes, we're gonna get into some of my favorite albums of the year, the albums that I couldn't put down, or even the albums that, maybe I enjoyed them for a bit and I thought they were noteworthy. So yeah, there will be 12 of these. And I'll try to be brief in all of them. And if you are here, thanks for clicking, and please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoy this, and check out some of my other music related videos. Alright, and our first album on the list, number 12, is Midnights by Taylor Swift. I'm not necessarily a Taylor Swift fan. She's one of those artists where like every time she puts something out, I'll listen to it, just cause, it's usually a big event. Regardless if I like you as an artist or, if I'm a fan or a stan or whatever, if your music feels like an event and everybody's talking about it, I'm going to feel left out. So I'm going to check it out anyway. And I always generally like what she puts out anyway. And going back to honestly Red, that was the first time I really started paying attention to her, because I always tell people like I started paying attention to Taylor Swift when she started crossing over into pop, because I'm not really into country. So yeah, when she started crossing over in Red, and I remember the first song of hers that caught my attention was I Knew You Were Trouble, and I enjoyed most of Red. And then 1989 came, and that was huge. That was a huge era for her. So that was, I love that album. That was a great album. Reputation came, and that was a huge, switch for her, and it was awesome, and it was great to see, and I really enjoyed that album. And then after that, Lover kind of went over my head. I didn't really pay much attention to Lover. It's just, it wasn't a bad album. I liked a few songs off of Lover, but overall, I just wasn't really paying attention to that one. Folklore, I didn't pay attention to Folklore when it first came out. I listened to a few songs and I didn't really pay much attention. And then literally a year later, I was in the mountains and I started listening to it, and it hit something in me, and I adore that album now. And then Evermore, I didn't really pay much attention to Evermore, and I didn't really pay much attention to like the re-releases. And then now we get to Midnights, and I was really, I was anticipating it, before it came out, because I liked the concept behind it, the 13, sleepless nights. That was a really cool concept. I really like the concepts behind all of Taylor Swift's albums. I like her concepts and just, how she writes. I like the way she writes too. But yeah, when I picked up this one, I listened to it at midnight when it came out at midnight, and I remember my first listen, as I was listening to it for the first time, she put out the deluxe edition. She called it the 3 a.m. edition, and I was like, oh, this is genius. This girl is a genius. You can say what you want about Taylor Swift, but she knows how to market her stuff. I thought that was genius. You got a song, you have an album called Midnights, and then you call the deluxe edition the 3 a.m. edition, and you put it out at 3 a.m. That's it doesn't get much better than that. But overall, I really like this album, obviously, because it's on my year-end list. I would say it's probably in my top 3 Taylor Swift albums. My top 3 Taylor Swift albums will probably be, in no particular order, Reputation, Folklore, and Midnights, this one. But I really, really, really enjoyed this one. Some of my favorites from the album: Lavender Haze, great song, probably one of my favorites of her entire catalog. Snow on the Beach, oh my gosh, I love Lana Del Rey, and so when I found out she was going to be on a song with Taylor Swift, I was like, oh, this is okay. I will say I wish she had like an actual verse. She really just mostly provides backing vocals, but I'll take what I can get. Vigilante-ish, really like that one. Sweet Nothing, like that one. And then as far as the 3 a.m. edition goes, I liked pretty much every song from the 3 a.m. edition. Specifically, The Great War, Bigger Than the Whole Sky, and Would've, Could've, Should've. Like, those are some of my favorites. Yeah, but I really enjoyed this one. I'm always tuned into what Taylor Swift is giving. Yeah, I do really respect her as an artist. Coming in at number 11, we have Harry's House by Harry Styles. Now, Mr. Styles is another one of those artists that I don't particularly consider myself a fan of, but I do appreciate his music. And when he puts out music, it's an event. It's one of those things where you can't really ignore it if you're a fan of pop music and pop culture. So, when he announced that he was putting out an album this year, I was like, okay, cool, let's check it out. And I think this is my favorite album from him. I didn't really pay much attention to his debut album. And then Fine Line, that's a great album. I adored that album. And even to this day, I think it's crazy that like songs like Adore You and Watermelon Sugar, they are still getting regular play on the radio in rotation with his current singles from Harry's House. So like Adore You was an inescapable song in itself, and I never got sick of it. And that song was everywhere, and I never got sick of it. Harry Styles makes some really good music. And I know in the corner of Twitter that I occupy, it's cool to like kind of hate on him and stuff like that for other reasons or whatever. And I'm sorry, I can't make the music not be good. Like I really like this album. I like the vibe. Some of my favorites from this one was Late Night Talking, Grape Juice, love that one. As It Was, probably my favorite lead single from him. Cinema was on repeat for me as well. Those would be some of my favorites. But I think this is a really solid album. No, I really like this one. This one, was probably my favorite Harry Styles album. And at number 10, we have Motomami by Miss Rosalia. And again, this entire list is pretty much a collection of artists that I don't necessarily consider myself a fan of, but like people just were really giving solid albums this year. And Rosalia, prior to Motomami, I maybe knew like one or two songs of hers, but I really like this album. And even before it came out, people on my Twitter were just talking so much, about Rosalia, just over and over and over. And I'm like, what is the hype? And another, again, I was like, okay, I don't want to feel left out. Let's see what the hype is about. But leading up to the album's release, I listened to what she had put out, the song that she had with The Weeknd, La Fama. Yes, La Fama. I really enjoyed that one. Sayoko, love that one. Chicken Teriyaki, love that one. And Hentai, oh my goodness. Let's talk about Hentai.
I don't know what the fuck she's saying, but girl, I am living.
But I still appreciated so much of this album. Some of my favorites, the aforementioned tracks, and then Bizcochito. Did I say that right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Because that's the only time I'm going to say it. That song, was everywhere, and the intro and the, if you don't know, and so, and it made me like it. And I love the choreography when she does it live. Yes. And yeah, I love it. And I'm excited to see what else Rosalia puts out. I love this album. I loved it. It was one of the best of this year, I think, objectively. So, yes, we love Motomami. Coming in at number 9, a really underrated one, Coping Mechanism from Willow. Now, people don't talk about Willow a lot. I've always loved Willow. I can remember back when she put out her Whip My Hair song, and Willow is kind of in a weird spot just because like you just never know what she's gonna do next. But when she really found her rock sound and stuck with that, I was like, oh, this girl is doing it. Like this is amazing. And her album that came out last year, Lately I Feel Everything, was the first one, I think, to my knowledge, that she really leaned into the rock sound, and I adored that album. Lately I Feel Everything, I think that was on my list of favorite albums last year. And so knowing that she was staying in that sound and that like punk rock, pop punk, emo, grunge rock, hard rock type sound, that knowing that she was staying in that for this album was really cool too, and I was for it, just because, you know, I like that, you know, that Linkin Park sound, that, you know, alternative type music, and which is one of the things that a lot of people don't know about me. They think I just listen to pop music and R&B. Like, no, like I love, you know, I can get emo, like I can get really emo if I want to. But no, I adored this album. I can't decide if I like it more or less than her last album, but I still love it. Maybe It's My Fault, love it. Curious Furious was one of my most played songs of this year. Hover Like a Goddess, Perfectly Not Close to Me, those are some of my favorites. I really enjoyed this one. You know, this is one I pull out when I just feel like just, I don't know, headbanging or acting like I'm in a mosh pit or something. No, but I think it's an album worth, if you like rock music, I think this album is worth checking out. I think Willow has a lot to give to the world, a lot of talent. I feel like people write her and her brother off as just being, you know, Will Smith's kids, and I mean there's so much more than that. They're very talented kids, and yes. Coming in next, we have at number 8, The Lead by Flo. Now Flo is taking the world by storm. I adore them. Their lead single, their debut single, Cardboard Box, is such an infectious song, and it has that like TLC, 3LW, Destiny's Child flavor to it, and I absolutely adore it. And I think we were overdue for another R&B girl group. Like, you know, every decade since like the 90s, we had like a big R&B girl group. You know, in the 90s it was TLC, and you know, the 2000s it was Destiny's Child, and then you get to the 2010s and it was like leaning more towards pop, you know, because you could say you had Fifth Harmony and Little Mix, but you know, they're more pop. They're, you know, not really R&B, and I feel like we were really missing out on R&B girl groups. And so Flo is so refreshing to me. I absolutely adore them, and I hope that they continue on their upward trend of success. But The Lead is their debut EP, so it's not quite an album, but I still put it on here. And every song on here is a hit to me. Cardboard Box, obviously my favorite. Immature is a fantastic song. Summertime is amazing. Feature Me is amazing. Another Guy is amazing. And they're just very talented girls, and I just want to see more from them, and I can't wait for the actual debut album. Coming in next at number 7, we have Crash by Charlie XCX. And again, if you saw my Spotify rap video, then you know Charlie XCX was one of my more unexpected artists. Well, actually my most unexpected artist on my top artist of this year. But I adored, one thing about me, if I enjoy every like single that you put out prior to the album, you know, then I'm gonna stay. I don't care how much I may not check for you as an artist, I'm gonna check for the album release, because I'm like, okay, I really like this. And I really liked what she was going for this era. Like the whole like 80s pop vibe. Like she was really leaning into pop this time around. Like she's always been pop, but it was like more conventional pop, and that was intentional. I remember she did an interview about that. But she put out Good Ones, and if you were following me on Twitter when she put out Good Ones, I was tweeting that video every single day because I was obsessed with that song, and it was not long enough. I just love Good Ones so much. And then she followed that up with New Shapes and with Christina and the Queens and Caroline Polachek, and I love that song. I don't think that gets nearly enough attention. It had that 80s pop flair to it, and I loved it. And then she had Beg For You featuring Rina Sawayama. Did I say that right? I hope I said that right. And then Baby, which I'm like, okay, like this is like her own. It's like it was giving me Control, Janet Jackson Control vibes, and I adore it. And yeah, I just loved every single that she put out prior to it. So I waited for the album, and I love the album so much. I love the title track, New Shapes, Good Ones, Constant Repeat. Love that song. Baby, Every Rule, Yuck. Yeah, just it's a phenomenal album. And then the deluxe, edition, she put that out as well. But I really appreciate Charli XCX, and I do respect her as a artist. I wish she got more attention, honestly. She doesn't get quite enough attention, and she's been in the industry for a very long time now, like over a decade, and it just seems like why are y'all not paying any attention to her? So, but I think good things are coming to her. But I've always loved Charli. So yeah, Crash was definitely one of my favorites of this year. Coming in at number 6, we have Age, Sex, Location by Ari Lennox. Ari Lennox is a refreshing artist to me. She has a very distinct voice, of that type of voice that you haven't heard since like Erykah Badu, like that genuine, like velvety, like smooth R&B voice, and I absolutely adore her. And she is doing so much for just, to bring R&B back to the forefront, and I really appreciate and respect her for that. Her debut album, Shea Butter Baby, was amazing. It kind of seems like to me she kind of has that same, like, and I don't know if it's labels or, creative issues or whatever, but like kind of feels like she's one of those artists where like she's gonna put out something whenever or when she's ready or whatever, which is fine. It's kind of like the whole SZA thing, where you'll get an album from them, but it's gonna be like every 5 or so years, which if the music is good, that's fine. I just would like it a little more often. But no, Age, Sex, Location, fantastic album. Love it. Some of my favorites from that one: POF, Plenty of Fish, loved it. Hoodie, loved it. Waste My Time, loved it. Pressure, loved it. Mean Mug is probably one of my most played songs of the year. Absolutely loved it. Boy Bye featuring Lucky Day, loved it. Leak It featuring Chloe Bailey, loved it. And Queen Space with Summer Walker, absolutely loved it. This whole album, it was just amazing. I absolutely loved it. Coming up next at number 5, we have Attention, Miley Live. Now, Miley Cyrus, honestly, I feel like a sister to me. Like, I've grown up with her. I remember the night that Hannah Montana premiered. And I was there, and I remember Party in the USA, and I remember that Can't Be Tamed, and I remember Bangers, and I was there for Bangers, and I was seated for Bangers, and I remember the Younger Now era when, that was a whole thing, and then I remember being so excited for Plastic Hearts, and, I absolutely adore that album. That was on my favorite albums list of 2020. But yeah, Attention it's a live album, and, I didn't really see the point of live albums recently, just because growing up in the era of YouTube, if I want to hear a live version of a song, I'm just gonna go YouTube search the live performance. But recently, especially with releases like Beyonce's Homecoming and Ariana Grande's K-Bye For Now, they've restored my faith in live albums, and I think live albums are necessary and still necessary, and they're not a thing of the past. And this album, Attention, proves it. And I think Miley Cyrus is just such an underrated vocalist as a whole. Like, she has such a great voice and a versatile voice. She can do it all, she can do pop, and she can do country, and she can do hip hop, and she can do rock. And honestly, her voice is made for rock. So when she really leaned into her rock sound for Plastic Hearts, it just felt so perfect, and I'm so glad that she did it. But I've always loved Miley. I adore her so much, and this album just it's great, and it's worth it. And if you're familiar with any of Miley's work, I highly suggest you check this out if you haven't. She gave life to songs that I didn't really even pay that much attention to, or didn't really, maybe like all that much. Like, the first song on the set is We Can't Stop, and just the way that she redoes it and the way that her voice sounds nowadays, it just adds so much to it, especially with her older songs, her like Fly on the Walls and stuff like that back in her Disney days. Songs like that, like, just the way hearing her sing them now in her older voice is just amazing, and I absolutely adore Miley so much. And also, side note, like, albums like this, it makes you realize just how many hits these artists have. It's like Miley Cyrus has hits. Miley Cyrus is an icon. She is. Like, you can't say much else about her. You can say what you want, but you can't say that she doesn't have hits, because that's just not true. It's not true. All right, coming up next at number 4, we have Based on a Feeling by Sabrina Claudio. Now, Sabrina Claudio, I'm going to say Claudio. Before I go any further, I do know that there was some controversy with her. She said some things on Twitter. So yeah, I do keep that in mind, but I'm sorry, I still enjoy the album. And I adore this album. I'm sorry, I love it. It's just a vibe. It's a vibe, and I love it. And some of my favorites from this one are the opening track, Subtle Things, Don't Make Me Wait. Those are my 2 favorites on there. And I think it's worth a listen, yeah, I highly recommend this one. If you like sad girl music, Sabrina Claudio is perfect for you. I think it's worth checking out. If you like Summer Walker, if you like SZA, if you like Kehlani, stuff like that, like, I highly recommend it. Coming up next, we're down to the top 3, and coming in at number 3, we have Dawn FM by The Weeknd. And Dawn FM was like one of the first albums on this list to be released. Yeah, it came out January 7th, 2022. So yeah, it came out very early this year. It didn't feel like it came. I actually thought it came out last year, because it just came out at the top of this year. Yes, I really like Dawn FM. It took me a few listens to really like it, I guess. Well, I mean, I always liked it, but it took a few listens to grow on me. I wasn't expecting a new album from him so soon after Hours, because After Hours was a huge era, and normally he takes his time in between albums, but this one is like a direct sequel to After Hours. As of recording this, I still prefer After Hours that over Dawn FM. I mean, that could change, but Dawn FM has some gems on it, and a lot of songs that I didn't maybe initially pay attention to on my first listen, they grew on me. But overall, I think I do prefer. I like the vibe of this one more than After Hours, but I like the actual music on After. And there's more songs in After Hours that I like than on here. But this one still definitely has its gems. I like Gasoline. Take My Breath, that was a lead single. I wasn't a huge fan of Take My Breath. It's grown on me, and in the context of the album, it sounds a lot better. Sacrifice was like my 3rd most played song on Spotify this year, something like that. It was in my top 5, I know that. Out of Time is amazing, such an amazing song. Best Friends remix with Summer Walker, underrated, check that out. Is There Somewhere Else, a great song, one of his best songs, I think. Don't Break My Heart is amazing. I Heard You're Married is good, I like that one too. It's just great. There's great songs on here. But it's not my favorite album of his, but I mean, still, I like it a lot. It's in my top 3, so yes, I really enjoyed this one. All right, and coming in at number 2, we have SOS by SZA. Now, I do have a video reviewing that, giving my first impressions, so check that out. I'll put a link in the description and a link up top if I remember to do so. But keep in mind, those were my first impressions, so I'm going to take this opportunity to give my impressions of the album now that we are 2 weeks, a week. It's been out for something like that. So a lot of the songs that I liked every song on this album, and I think I said that in my review. There's a few amendments that I want to make. I would probably raise all of my ratings by 1 star at this point. This album is, well, the big question that everybody was, or a topic they were discussing is it better than Control? And I said in my video, I said her goal should not be to top Control. It should just be to give a solid album, and I think she did that here. She accomplished what she wanted to do with this album, and it's a great album, and it has very high highs, and there are no like lows. The lowest on this album are just maybe mid tracks, but there's no bad songs on this album in my opinion. And 23 tracks, but it doesn't feel like 23 tracks because, like I said, SZA songs are short. They're short songs. And sometimes that works, and sometimes I'm like, I wish this song was longer. But my favorites are still my absolute favorites. Blind and Gone Girl were since my first listen, absolutely obsessed with those songs. Love Language, I gave that 2 stars in my review, but that was mostly because I was just upset because she sampled Hit Different but didn't put Hit Different on the album. I actually love Love Language a lot now, so I would raise my rating to like 4 stars. Notice Me, I called Notice Me a skip. I called it a skip, and I regret that because Notice Me I love that song. That's one of my favorites on there now. I love every song on this album. It's still on constant repeat for me. I can't put this album down. I just can't. I try to listen to other things and it just doesn't work. And she's putting out a deluxe edition sometime soon, I hope. And yeah, this is probably gonna still be on repeat for me well into January and maybe even February. I absolutely love this album. SOS is a phenomenal album and would have been #1 album had it not been for #1, which is, to no one's surprise, Renaissance by Beyonce. Now, everything that I wanted to say about this album I probably said in my Spotify rap video already, but I'm just gonna reiterate, it's Beyonce. Like, what do you want me to say? It's Beyonce. It's Beyonce. I can say that over and over again. It's Beyonce. It's such an infectious album. I couldn't put it down. It's kind of died down on me now, but I still go back to it. I have never quite seen an album more than 14 tracks that has no skips. Hell, I can't even think of an album more than 11 tracks usually that doesn't have at least 1 or 2 skips on it, and it doesn't, and it's just such a vibe. And everything that Beyonce does is just beyond, and this album was worth the wait, and we're waiting patiently. Everybody wants the visuals, everybody wants this, everyone wants that, and it's like, you got to realize, like, Beyonce works on Beyonce's time, so we'll get that whenever she wants to put it out. There's no use in me saying my favorite tracks from Renaissance, because I love all the songs from Renaissance. Yes, but yes, my favorite album of 2022 is Renaissance. Thank you so much for making it this far. If you did make it this far, I want to hear from you guys. Tell me, did I miss an album that you think I should have listened to this year? Do you think my ranking was good? Do you think my ranking was bad? What's your top 10 or your top 5 or just any of your favorite albums of this year? Recommend me something. Give me something to listen to. I'm open to suggestions. Talk about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and thank you so much for getting me to 3,000 subscribers. That is just crazy, and I can't believe it, and I love doing this, and I adore all of you, and just thank you. I cannot thank you enough. Enjoy the holiday season. I hopefully will get one more video out before the end of the year, but if I don't, see you next year, and I love you all. And stay beautiful, and I will see you in the next video. I love you all.